In this video, I am going to discuss users functions in structured programming part 2. Okay, first of all, let's see some basic concepts in functions, right? So first one is scope of variables. Scope variables. Actually, the scope of variable is a region of the program where a defined variable can have its existence, right? So simply we can say uh, the region or the accessible region of the uh, defined variable. Accessible region of the already defined variable, right? So that is identified as a scope of the variables, right? And there are three places where variables can be declared, right? So first one is inside the function or a block, which is called local variables, right? So we can declare a variable inside the particular block or inside the function, right? So those are called local variables. The next one is outside of the all the functions, right? So we can declare variables uh, from the outside of the defined functions. Those are called global variables. Those are called global variables. The next one is in the definition of the function parameters. Right. So when you define the functions, they can have some parameters. Right. So those are called formal parameters. Formal parameters. Okay. Then let's take one by one. The first one is local variables. Right. So local variables are variables that are declared inside the function or a block, right? So as I said earlier, local variables are the variables which are declared inside the function, right? Or a block, right? So sometimes say if else, right? So if else selection block, right? So we can declare a variable inside the if block or else block, right? So likewise we can declare variables. So those are called local variables. So they can be used only by statements that are inside that function or block of codes. Uh, So if you have declare a variable which is inside the function or inside the particular block, those variables can be used only by statement which are inside that particular block or a block function, right? So local variables are not accessible to the outside of the function, right? So if you declare a variable inside the function, that variable is not accessible to the outside of that function, right? So let's take an example, right? So this is my function, add numbers, right? So there are two parameters. We call those are formal parameters, number one and number two, right? So in here, I declare a variable. So these are parameters. We call these are formal parameters. In here, so that means inside the add numbers function, I declare a variable called total, right? So the type integer. So this is called a local variable because this variable declare inside the add numbers function, right? So then I assign the total or the summation of number one and number two to the local variable total, right? And then I return the value of the total variable, right? So in here, this is my main method, right? So in here, I'll declare another two variables. So those two variables are n1 and n2. So those are local variable to the main method or main function. And then I called the add numbers function, right? So along with this n1 and n2, right? So those are arguments in here. So in here, we pass n1 to number one and n2 assigned to the number two, right? So in here, they take n1 to the number one, n to the number two, and then calculate the summation and return the value of total. Then that total come to here and that assigned to the variable sum, right? So variable sum is also a local variable to the main method or the main function, right? So in here, the total return to the this point, and then that value assigned to the variable sum, right? So in here we can print n1 N2 and the value of sum. So here we can print the value of N1, N2 and sum, right? So once if you try to access the variable total, right, that is not accessed within the main function because the variable total is local variable which is accessible to the add numbers function, right? So if you try to access the variable total, that is not accessible within the main method. All right, so let's try to do this in our div C++, right? So in here, get new file, right? So I'll include standard input output header file, right? So in here, I declare a function called add numbers, right? And in here, I declare two parameters, int number one, int number two, right? So in here, I declare variable called int total. So this is local variable, right? And then I assign the summation of number one and number two to the variable total. Then I return the value, uh, sorry, return the value of total from this add numbers function, right? So total is integer variable. So therefore here return type is integer, right? So in here I declare the main method, right? Main method. So in here I'll declare two variable in one. Here I can assign any value, and here I declare another variable in two. I declare a variable in two and assign the value. And here I'll call to add numbers function with two arguments n1 and n2. Sorry, close the calling function. Okay, then n1 assigned to the variable number one, n2 assigned to the variable number two, and do the calculation assigned to the other variable total, and the value of total will return, right? So here that the value of total come to display as. So here we can assign that value to the another variable called sum, right? Now I can print uh, n1, n2 and variable sum, right? So those are integers. So therefore I format the output like this, n1 plus n2 uh, as equal sum. So there are three integers. So here we can specify those integers n1, n2 and sum, right? Okay, then I compile this, right? Okay, sorry. Yeah, actually before compiling, I have to save this, right? So I'm going to save this, right? So go to file and save as, and then I have already create a folder called function. So this is my first function, right? So I can use function. Yeah, actually this is the first function in local variable. I'll assign a name of the program as a local variable, right? So dot c. I have already created this file, so therefore I replace this, right? In your case, you can save without any problem, right? Okay. Then I compile this, all right? Okay. Since there is no error, I can execute this. Right? Now you can see there is no error, right? But if you try to access the variable total in here, right? So okay, now I try to print the value of total, right? So print the value of total. So since total is integer, here total, all right? Okay, then I compile this. Now you can see here it says total undeclared first use in this function. That is, a total is not declared within this function, right? That is, this within the main method, right? Within the main method, there is no variable called total. There is no variable named as total, right? So that means the variable total is accessible only within the add numbers function, right? So simply we can say any variable which is declared inside the function, that is local variable, then the local variable is only accessible for the defined function or a block, right? So okay, that's it, right? Then you can realize it by creating this kind of program, right? Okay. The next one. The next one is global variables. Next one is a global variables, right? So what is global variable? A global variables are defined outside the function, right? Global variables are defined outside the function, usually on top of the programs, right? So if it is outside, usually we define the global variables on top of the programs, right? So global variables hold their values throughout the lifetime of our program, right? So inside the global values, if you assign or if you pass value to the global variable, that value hold within throughout the lifetime of our program, right? So they can be accessed inside any of the functions defined for the program. So then uh, even the local variables are not accessible for the outside of the functions. However, global variables can be accessed inside any of the functions defined in the program, right? So a global variable can be accessed by any function. So we can say global variable can be accessed by any function, right? A global variable is available for use throughout our entire program after its declaration, right? Okay, let's see, right? So this is our global variable. So I declare variable outside the functions int total, right? So then I declare that method at numbers. Then right now this total, the variable total is accessible for the add numbers function because this is global, right? Then we can get the summation of num1 and num2 assigned to the variable total, right? And then within the main method we can declare two variables and call to the add numbers function, right? So in here we can notice that there is no a return statement, right? So in here there is no return statement, but the variable total can be accessed within the main method, right? Because that is global variable. Here we can print the value of n1, n2, and the total, right? So that's it, right? Because the total is global variable. Total is global variable. Since total is global variable, that can be accessed within any functions in our program, right? Within any functions in our program, right? Okay, let's see. I'll create this program in a new file, right? So, first of all, I'll include the standard header file, standard input output header file, and I declare a variable called total, the outside of the functions, right? So, since it's outside of the function, that is global variable, and then I declare the my function or the method, and in here I declare a variable, two variables, int number and int number two, int number one and int number two. Then in here we can access the variable total, right? So I'll take the summation of the number one and number two and assign to the variable total like this, right? So in here I can declare a main method, right? And in here I declare two variable, another two variable with same values like in earlier program, right? So you can declare any variable and assign any value. And here I'll call to the add number function, add number function. And then here I pass two arguments n1 and n2, right? So which will assign to the number one and number two respectively. So since there is no return value, right? So here we don't need to define another variable to assign this result of this function or the return value of this function. But in here we can access the variable total because that is global variable. N1 and N2 are always accessible to the main function, right? So here we can print the values. Here we can print the values, right? So here I'm going to print this format N1 plus N2 is equal the results, right? Results is also integer. So therefore, I put this, I specify this kind of output format, and then here I put n1, n2. There is no problem because those are local variable, right? Since those are local variables, we can access within the defined function. But the special thing is here we can access the global variable called total, right? Okay, then I save this one as say global variables, right? I'm going to save this program as say global variable, say global variables dot c. Okay, then I compile this, right? Okay, then there's problem with this here add numbers function, undefined reference to the add numbers, because in here since there is no return type, return the statement, right? The return value is none, right? So since there is no return value, so here we can define as void, return type as void, right? And I compile, now it's okay, right? Now that's okay. And then there is another problem. It says at number, undefined reference to the at number. Here you can see, right? So this function is at number, but here I call to the at number. This is here there is a spelling mistake, right? So this is the function name. So this is the calling point, right? So here there's spelling mistake. Here we have to correct it, right? So here it's a right undefined reference to the at nub, right? So there is a not in here, right? So we have to use the exact name function name. Now it's okay, right? Now you can see 10 plus 20 equal 30. That is, we can access the variable total inside the main method because the total is global variable, right? So that is declare outside the all the functions, out of the all the functions. Okay, so that's about the global variables. That's about the global variables, right? Okay, then next one is say let's go to the next one, that is static variable. Static variable. So let's see what is static variable. A static variable is declared by using static keyword, right? So here we can declare static variable as static, the type integer I, static int I, right? So I is static variable. So the value of the static variable persists until the end of the program. That means if you declare a particular variable as a static variable, the value of the static variable persists until the end of the program, right? So let's take example, right? So in here there is a method called display. There's a function called display. Here I'll declare a variable called static, right? So here I declare variable c as a static variable, and then here I add the value 5 to the static variable, right? So then 1 plus 5 then assigned to the C, right? So yeah, if it is not clear, so here, so this is equal to this. That means uh, C plus 5 assigned to the variable C. That's it. So this is same as this, right? Okay. Then I print the value of C. So for the first time, when you call to the function display, right? Now you know C assigned by value 1, and then C uh, plus 5 assigned to the C. That is the value of C is 6. Then 6 will be displayed. 6 will be printed. And then when you call to the display function second time, now C has a value called 6. That is not uh, leave from the variable, right? So that is persist, right? So now the value of C is 6. Now the again the value of 1 is not initialized because C has been updated earlier. That value is uh, persist, right? So that is not updated, right? So now here the value of C is 6. 6 plus 5 means 11. Now C is update as 11. Then the second time the value of c is 11. All right. So if it is not static, it is not static, always c is 1. So when you call to the display method, c is assigned by the value 1, right? But in this case, c take the value of the earlier update, earlier updated value, all right? So that is not uh, initialize again and again. So let's see, right? So let's see this program, right? So I'll take a new file, right? So here I'll include the standard input output file, right? So in here, so I declare a method called display, right? So in here, I declare variable called c of the type static integer c. I initialize c by 1, the value 1, then c plus 5 assigned the variable c, right? And then here I can print the value c, printf, then value c, that is of the type integer c, right? So within the main method, I can call to the method display like this, right? Okay, then I save this file, save as. So this is static variable c. So I have already saved that file. Therefore, I have to replace. Okay, then I compile this and I run this. You know, the first time the value of c is 6, because when you call the display method, here c initialized by 1, then 1 plus 5 is assigned to c, that is 6. But if you call display again, display sorry display function again, then in earlier c has been updated by the value 6. Now that value is persist, right? So that value is not initialized again, right? So now c is 6, 6 plus 5 11. Then the second time the value of c is 11, right? Then I compile and then I run. Now you can see second time, for the second time the value of c is 11. So here it's better to go to next line. Okay, then we can compile and execute. Now you can see for the first call the value of c is 6. For the second call the value of c is 11. If you call again, right, see now the current value of c is 11, then 11 plus 5, that is 16. If you call the display method again, now you will realize, yeah, here 16, that is the value of c is not initialized again and again. So if it is not static, right? Now let's see. If it is not static, then always the value of c is 6, because c is initialized in each and every calling of the display method, right? So if you call to the display method, c is initialized. If you call to the display method again c is initialized. But if it is static like this, that is not initialized. That the earlier value is persist, right? The earlier value is not destroyed, right? That is keep as it is. Okay, so that's about the static variable. That's about the static variable. Okay, so those are some basic concepts in function when you declare variables with the functions, right? Then I'll go to the another topic, that is solve problem using functions, right? Solve problems using functions. Okay, I'll take example, right? So assume I want to calculate the value r, right? So r equal a multiplied by b divided by a plus b, right? So in this formula, I can easily break it into two parts, right? So first one is a multiplied by b. I assign the value of a by b into r1, and then I take a plus b as r2, right? So then if you can solve this problem by two parts, right? So here r1 is equal a into b, r2 equal a plus b, right? So if we have value of r1 and r2, then easily we can calculate the value of r by R1 divided by R2, right? So we can define three different functions for these three calculations. One function for this one, R1, the other one for R2, and then another one for R, right? So let's see, right? So here I declare a function called a multiplication for this one, addition for this one, and division for this one, like that, right? So let's see, like this, right? So in here I include the standard input output 5, and then here I'll declare a function called multiply, right, along with two parameters n1 and n2 of the type double. So in here I take the multiplication of n1 and n2 and then assign to the variable called result1 of the type double, right? And then from this function I return the result1, right? And then next function is add, right? So here we have two parameters n1 and n2 of the type double, and then here I take the total of n1 and n2, right? And then assign to the variable called results 2, right? And then here I return the value results 2, right? Now we know n1 and n2 are formal parameters, right? So here n1 and n2 are formal parameters. Results 1 is local parameter, right? So this is not accessible within the function add, right? So here also we can use result one, right? Result one, because these two are local variables, right? And then I declare another variable function called division, right? With two parameters n1 and n2, right? And here calculation is n1 divided by n2 and assigned to the variable result. Result is of the type double, right? Here we can return the value of the result variable, right? So these are the three functions for our calculation, right? So within the main method, what we can do, here I declare two variables and then three variables of the type double, num1, num2, and answer. And then here I take two inputs for number one, number two, and then first of all I'll call the function called multiply with number one and number two. Num1 assigned to the variable n1, num2 assigned to the variable n2, and then here we take the multiplication and assign to the variable result 1, and then the result 1 return from this function. Then that is come to here, and here we take a variable called r1. R1 takes the value of result 1, right? Same procedure followed here, right? So here I called the function called add along with n1 and n2 as a two argument. N1 assigned to the variable, sorry, number one and number two. Number one assigned to the variable n1, number two assigned to the variable n2, and then do the calculation and then return the result 2. Result 2 return to this point, and result 2 assigned to the variable r2. Now we know r1 and r2. Here I called the function division with R1 and R2 as arguments. Then R1 assigned to the N1, R2 assigned to the N2. Then here we calculate N9 divided by N2. Then assign the variable result. And here we return the result, right? So that is come here and assign the variable answer, right? Now we have the answer with number one and number two, right? Here we can print number one, number two with the answer. Here we can print with our format, right? So here R1, R2 divided by, sorry, number one, number two divided by number one plus number two, right? And then that is assigned to the answer, right? So this is a very simple solution for our calculation, right? So likewise, we can uh, decompose our problem. We can divide our problem into manageable components, right? So we call manageable components, right? So we can define the separate functions for the divided components. For the we call sub uh, components, right? Okay. So let's see how to do this in our new C++ tool, right? So this there is one special thing, right? So we have to define three different functions with the main method, right? Okay. Let's see. I'll include standard header file, standard header file, and then I declare uh, three functions. The first one is say multiplication. So here I return the results of the type double. So therefore I define return type as double, and then this is multiply, right? And then here we need two double parameters, say n1 and n2, right? Like this. Here we declare a variable called say result, right? Result 1, which is n1 n1 multiplied by n2, right? And then I can return results 1. So we can simply say with R1, so say result 1, right? And then next one is a double addition. And so for that double n1 and then double n2. Here we take the summation of n1 and n2, right? Declare a variable called say result2, say n1 plus n2 assigned to the results2, return results2, right? Like this, and then say double division, right? So here also we can take n1 and n2, all right? So those are the formal parameters. So here, okay, uh, here we can say answer or result or whatever variable, right? It doesn't matter. Result equals say n1 divided by n2. So that is the three different functions, and then main method int main, right? So here we have to declare two variables. Say simply say n1 n2. So the kind of the integer type have to declare double n1 n2 and answer, right? And then I will take out output message, right? Say enter number 1, right? Okay, and then I use scanif function to take the input, scanif, right? So since these are double variable, I have to specify lf and say n1 double. So I just copy this statement. Here we can pick enter number 2 and then take to n2. Then first of all I have to call to the multiplication function. So this one multiply, right? Then I can call multiply, and then I have to pass two arguments, say n1 and n2, right? And then here we can take that answer to the variable say double. We can say that is say L1. So we can say answer 1, right? See, here we have to declare those variables as well, right? Right. So without declaring in here, we can declare say R1, R2 like this, easy, right? So then simply we can say R1, right? So the answer of this function or the return value of this function assigned to R1, and then I can call to the addition function or the add function, right? Add function with two arguments, that is also n1 and n2, and then the results assigned to the R2, right? And then we can take the final answer by calling division function, division, right? Division, right? Here we have to call division function with R1 and R2, right? We have to follow this order because so this is the multiple result R1. So this is the result of add function. Then R1 assigned to the N1, R2 assigned to N2. Here, N1 divided by N2 assigned to this R. So here we can assign the final answer to the variable whole answer. That's it. Then we can print the output with our desired format. Right. So here we can print. Right. So we know our formula is right, a into b divided by a plus b, right? So that means there are two double value multiplication like this, and then division by two parameters like double like this. This is assigned to the variable double. All right. So now we know first one is n1, next one is n2. All right. So there is this multiplication part. Right. So here, if you want, you can put a bracket in here. Right. Like this. And then next one here. This one is n1. This one is n2. Right. You can put n1, n2, and then equals so not the d. So there is also double. Then f. That is answer. So this variable or this one. Right. Like this. Okay. Now we can check whether there are any errors. All right. So we can compile this. I save this one as a file and say one say functions functions.c. Right. I compile this. Right. Here you can see there is no this semicolon is missing in these two statements. Now it's okay. There's no error in here. Right. Okay. Now I can run this. And the number one, I could say 50. And the number two, say 20. Now we know 50 into 20 divided by 50 plus 20. Right. Okay. Likewise, we can compile and execute this program. Even if you want, you can put uh, decimal points as well. Right. So the 14 point as well. Right. So you can use any number. Right. So you can say 25.0 All right. Okay. So that's about the using functions. Right. Okay. Then next for the uh, next one. Right. So here I'm going to consider processing array elements inside the functions. How to process array elements, right? So array elements in functions. Right. So in here, right? So this is our standard input output file, right? So including that file, and then here I'm going to uh, find the maximum number of array, right? So that's the array which contain numbers. I'm going to find what's the maximum number of that value, right? So among those values, I'm going to find what's the maximum number of those numbers among those numbers, right? Okay. Then this is my function, right? So I'll explain it. So inside the main method, here I declare an array called marks, right? So in this array there are five numbers, right? Then I call to the max number. So this is that function. Here I pass that array. So this is how we pass array, right? So when you pass the array into function, here we can mention the name of the array, right? So no need to specify this is array because here we have declared marks as array, right? Okay. So in here, right, in here, inside this function, right, so we have to here this function is received array. So here there should be a array. So we have to declare array as a parameter, right? So I declare array called num as a parameter, right? So here num is array, right? So this is how we specify array, right? So here we don't need to specify marks as array because already the compiler knows this marks is array because that has been already declared, right? But in here we have to specify number is array, right? Because here a number is received the values of arrays, right? Values of array, right? So number is array, right? So here we are going to find the maximum value of the numbers in the array, right? So I take variable called max, and then so go through the array. I declare variable called I, and then here I calculate the size of the array or the length of the array, how many elements are there, right? So there is a function called size of, right? So that is inbuilt function in C programming. I use that function, which is in a standard input output file, right? Size of. So there's a function called size of, and then here we can pass the array. Then this function return the length of the array, right? Because when you go through the array, we have to know length of the array, right? So I'll explain this one using the flow chart, right? So here initially I assign max and the variable I as 0, right? Then I calculate the size of the array. That's okay, you know that. And then here initially I is 0, I is 0, right? Then I check in here. Now we know our length of number is 5. So here number of elements are 5, right? Then within this loop, right? So I equal 0, and then length is 5. 5 less than 0, right? 5 less than 0. Here we check 5 less than 0. That is true. And then therefore go to inside the for loop, right? So that is true. Go inside the for loop, and then here there's the if selection. Here they check whether num I means I now the value of I is 0, then num 0 means 50. Yeah, 50. They check 50 uh, is greater than the value of max, or the max less than 50. Max is 0. Then they check 0. All right, current max is 0. 0 less than 50. 50 is the first element of the array, or 0 index of the array, right? Because I is 0. All right. So this is true. This is true. Therefore, they go inside the if block, that is true. Then assign the num I, that is num 0, that is 50, as a maximum value. Then max is 50. Then increment I by 1 within this loop. Right. So now current I is 0. Then increment value of I by 1, that is 1. Then go to the selection or this condition again, that is next iteration of the loop. Right now current value of I is 1, current value of maximum is 50. Okay, I less than 5, that is true. That is true. I less than 5, because I is 1, 1 less than 5, that is true. Then go to the next one, that is num I, num 1, that is the first index of the array, that is 40. 40, so the max, the current value of max is 50. Num 1 is 40, like this. Then 50 less than 40, 50 less than 40, that is false, that is false. So therefore come to here, right? So therefore this the program is not entered inside the if selection. Go to the next iteration of the for loop. That means go to the I plus plus, that is the maximum value is not changed, that is 50, and then I given by 1, that is 2, right? Then next one is 2 less than 5, 2 less than 5, that is true, that is true. Then come to here, then num2 means here second index, that is the third element of the array, that is 60. Then current max is 50, 50 less than 60, 50 less than 60, that is true. Therefore go to the inside of this if block, then num2 assigned to the variable max, that is 60, that is 60, right? And then go to the I plus plus, that is the next iteration of the for loop, right? So go to the I plus plus, that is 3. Then enter to the next iteration of the for loop. Now the value of I is 3, 3 less than 5, that is true, that is true. Therefore go to the inside of the for loop, then go to the selection block, current max value is 60, 60 less than num3, num3 means the fourth element of the array, that is 75. 60 less than 75, 60 less than 75, that is true. Then inside the go inside the if selection block, then this process is implemented. Then num3 means 75, right? The fourth element, the index 75 assigned as a maximum value. Okay, now current maximum is 75. Then go to the I plus plus, that is 4, right? 4. Then that is the value of I increment by 1, that is 4. Then go to the next iteration of the for loop, that is I is 4, 4 less than 5, that is 2, that is 2. Then go inside the if selection, right? Now num4. Num4 means the final value of the array, that is 80, right? Fifth index, 80. 80 less than current maximum. Current maximum is, so in here, that's mistake. So that is not 55, that is uh, 75. 75, right? Now we know. So for that, that is 75. So here, 75 less than 80. 75. Now we know current maximum is 75. And then num4. Num4 means the final value or the fourth index of the array, that is 80. That is 80. 80 and 75. 75 less than 80. That is true. That is true. That is true. So therefore, go to inside the if selection block, right? Then num4 or the final value or the fourth index or the fifth value element assigned to the variable max. Now maximum is 80. 80. Then increment I by 1, that is 5, right? Then go to the next iteration, right? Now value of I is 5. Then check this condition, 5 less than 5, that is false. That is false. Then out from the for loop. Then go to the print statement. Now current value of maximum is 80, and 8 will be printed as maximum value. The value of sum. So that's about this implementation. So we can write this program in div C++, div C++. For time saving, I just copy this code and run in our div C++ software, right? So I go to the next new file and copy this program, right? So I have already explained, right? So here you can run this, right? Keyboard files, save as, so find max.c, find max.c, right? And then you can compile and execute this program. First of all, you have to compile this, execute and compile. If there is no error, since there is no error, you can run the 80. Right? 80 is the maximum value of this array. So if you want, you can change this so 100 and then compile and execute. Now current maximum is 100. Likewise, you can check this and say 120. 235. Likewise, you can change these values and then check whether this is correct. Now maximum is 235. So likewise, you can realize of this algorithm. Okay. So that's about the functions, right? Please try to do these programs with your own and then try to understand the concept behind this programming technique, right? So if you have any problem regarding this, you can send me a message or email, right? Okay, thank you very much.